Welcome to Legal AF with Ben Meiselas and Michael Popok. I'm Ben. We have some breaking news to report. The utter and complete capitulation and humiliation of ABC News. We'll break it down right now. Michael Popok is in transit. As you can see, I'm in a hotel right now recording this. We've both been traveling. I'm going to take this first segment, then we'll bring Michael Popok in. This is utterly outrageous what ABC just did. One by one, we've seen corporate media fold, kiss the ring, and not just obey in advance, but go through humiliation ritual after humiliation ritual. Here is what happened. ABC has announced that it will be paying $15 million to a charitable foundation controlled and or run by Donald Trump for Trump's future presidential library as part of a settlement when Donald Trump, in my opinion, filed what might have been the single most frivolous lawsuit against ABC and George Stephanopoulos. I am waiting to hear what George Stephanopoulos has to say, but shame on you, Stephanopoulos. Shame on you, ABC, and anybody who works at ABC. Utterly atrocious and despicable. Let me remind you all what this lawsuit was and how despicable it is and was that ABC is doing, and how it is more important than ever that we stand up and we just shut down corporate media at this point, because they are nothing more than a Donald Trump fascist mouthpiece. It is utterly disgusting. It is utterly despicable. And what I promise you here is that we here at Legal AF, we here at the Midas Touch Network will never obey in advance. We will never kiss the ring. You will literally have to take Michael Popok, myself, and our contributors to the gulag. We're not running away. We're not freaking scared of this crap. How dare ABC? For real, I am pissed at the start of this episode. Again, let me remind you what this lawsuit was about. As you all remember, Donald Trump was found liable for sexual assault in the E. Jean Carroll civil case. Not a criminal case, a civil case in New York federal court. A federal jury, found unanimously that Donald Trump sexually assaulted E. Jean Carroll in that federal case. Subsequently, there was another federal case where Donald Trump was found liable for defamation. When you add up Donald Trump's defamation verdicts against him, as well as the sexual assault verdict, Donald Trump had to post a bond nearing $100 million for his despicable actions. Now, in New York, there are technical distinctions between, I'll give a trigger warning here again, because I'm going to be describing some aspects of sexual assault. There's a distinction in New York law, a technical one, in how the law is just written between sexual assault and a rape. And that's the difference between a finger and the genitals. So what the jury found in New York is that Donald Trump sexually assaulted E. Jean Carroll essentially with a finger. And did not say that he did it with genitals. So that's the way the verdict went down, sexually assaulting with the finger. Now, we've all heard Donald Trump on audio saying that he grabs women by their genitals, and he says they let you do it when you're famous and rich like him. We've heard other statements of Donald Trump talking about inspecting women at beauty pageants, right? We've heard all of that. So subsequent to that civil verdict, George Stephanopoulos on his weekend show on ABC described Donald Trump's conduct as rape. Now, the federal judge in New York, in the underlying order, one of the orders, what the federal judge had said was that Donald Trump's conduct based on, even though there's a distinction in the technical language, the federal judge said that the technicalities aside, one could basically describe the conduct as being the same thing. But there was that technical distinction. But the federal judge even basically said that that they were basically the same thing. So what Donald Trump's federal lawsuit for defamation against George Stephanopoulos, what it was about was Donald Trump saying, George Stephanopoulos went on TV and called my conduct a rape, when in fact it was a sexual assault. And you've defamed me, you've harmed my reputation. How dare you call a digital penetration with fingers that a jury found sexual assault to be a rape? You've offended me. I'm suing you for defamation of my character. So that's what the lawsuit was about. Donald Trump said he was suing for billions of dollars. He got the headlines right. So then there was a development this past week on that front as well. The big development was that the magistrate judge ordered Donald Trump to sit for a deposition. Donald Trump was therefore kind of cornered. The magistrate judge also ordered George Stephanopoulos to sit for a deposition. That deposition of Trump and Stephanopoulos under oath before a video camera. That would eventually become public because court records are public records, right? That was going to be scheduled for this week based on the magistrate's order. Donald Trump was the plaintiff in this action. Trump was the person who filed the lawsuit. So we've been giving analysis here on the Midas Touch Network and Legal AF that there was basically no way for Donald Trump to wiggle out of this deposition or to squirm out of it, unlike his other cases, because he's the plaintiff. So one of the things we were saying is, well, wow, now George Stephanopoulos' lawyers get to ask Donald Trump about sexual assault, about Donald Trump's distinction in his mind between sexual assault and rape. You could ask Donald Trump about all of the other statements that Donald Trump made about sexually assaulting women in the past, or Donald Trump saying in the past that he grabs women by their you-know-what. What did you mean when you made those types of comments, right? What were you referring to when you talked about inspecting people in your beauty pageants? What did you mean by that? You know, going on and on and on about that. And Trump was never going to sit for that deposition. Let me give you another corollary example here of somebody who's, I think, paid a steep price for being courageous in the face of kind of Trumpism. But think about the Michael Cohen case for a second. Remember, Donald Trump sued Michael Cohen for $500 million. Remember, then Cohen demanded Donald Trump's deposition. And then what happened? Donald Trump dismissed the case right before the deposition. So that's clearly Donald Trump was not going to sit for a deposition with ABC where he was going to be asked questions about sexual assault and about what damages are you claiming, and you're saying you were humiliated by this. Here, play this tape, play this tape. Here's what you said here, Donald. Here's what you said here, Donald. Remember when you said this? So your whole point of your case here is that you think that the distinction between a rape and a sexual assault, a finger versus genitals, that's what you're suing over? You would have had Trump looking right into the camera based on the magistrate judge's order. So the magistrate judge says you got to sit in 5 days. So, you know, any traditional legal analysis with our justice system, with our civil system, any analysis goes, well, look, this, for all intents and purposes, this case is over. If you're the lawyers representing ABC right now, you go, Trump ain't sitting for this deposition right now before the inauguration. That ain't happening. Trump's not going to answer these questions. And, you know, if you're the lawyers, you're like, we're going to, you know, one of the things they were teeing up is a motion called summary judgment, which is like a motion to dismiss the case before it even goes to trial. Before the trial actually takes place. That's a summary judgment motion. Once you get the depositions, you do a summary judgment motion where you say Trump has no facts to even claim that he's been defamed in a situation like this. And I think that ABC, in my opinion, ABC would have clearly won that, and Trump would never have sat for a deposition. So then, you know, an hour ago or so, or an hour and a half ago, before we're about to do the show, all of a sudden there's an announcement. There's a settlement. And the settlement is that ABC is paying $15 million to a future charitable foundation for Donald Trump. Total and utter capitulation. What are you paying? There's no, in my opinion, no legal basis at all for Donald Trump to file to file this lawsuit in the first place. Or in my opinion, I think that there's no way that Donald Trump was going to ultimately prevail in this lawsuit. And then just an utter capitulation. Just set his deposition, take his deposition, ask him all of those questions right there, and force him on those issues. What are you doing, ABC? It is utterly despicable, utter cowardice. Here, let's just pull it up right here. And they settled on you want to know how extra cowardice? They settled on a Saturday. I'm wondering what George Stephanopoulos is going to say. Oh, and then ABC and George Stephanopoulos are going to issue a written apology based on this. Here's how Kyle Cheney puts it. A day after Trump and George Stephanopoulos were ordered to appear for depositions, they settled the case. ABC's agreed to make a $15 million contribution to the Trump Presidential Museum Foundation and air an apology for mischaracterizing the E. Jean Carroll verdict. Are you freaking kidding me, ABC? Honestly, I don't know how people are going to watch ABC. How can you watch a network that didn't just obey in advance, that totally and utterly capitulated? This is, look, the Jeff Bezos $1 million inauguration, shameful, despicable, not shocking that it's Bezos. Doesn't surprise me that Bezos would do that, but it's despicable. Mark Zuckerberg, doesn't surprise me that Mark Zuckerberg, would do that. Shameful, disgusting, despicable. You pick your words right here. This ABC thing, in my view, so much freaking worse. So much worse. A $15 million settlement, a kiss. Are you absolute? Look at this. Now, therefore, in consideration of the foregoing mutual covenants and agreements set forth, and the parties agreeing to release one another of any related claims or liability, and for the good and valuable consideration recited herein, the receipt and sufficiency for which is acknowledged, ABC shall cause a transfer in the amount of $15 million US to be made to a presidential foundation and museum to be established by or for the plaintiff as presidents of the United States of America have established in the past. And by the way, you know where this money's coming from, right? ABC is owned by Disney. This money's coming from Disney right now. So anybody who's working there right now, what are you thinking about this? $15 million to this library in advance, where George Stephanopoulos described the conduct one way when Trump was found liable of sexual assaulting a woman in federal court. Look yourself in the freaking mirror if you work at Disney right now. Look yourself in the freaking mirror if you work for ABC right now. Let's not forget what the underlying case was about, that Trump was found liable for sexually assaulting a woman, and her name was E. Jean Carroll. And you're going to talk about over here $15 million. The charitable contribution shall be made within 10 days of the effective date of this agreement to an escrow account to be established by plaintiff's counsel, who will serve as the escrow agent for this specific charitable contribution. Oh, what, ABC and Disney? You're going to get a charitable write-off for this? Is that how you view it? All we have to do is humiliate ourselves, get a tax write-off for $15 million, look ridiculous, and then maybe Donald Trump won't go after us. Maybe he won't go after us. You're a news organization. What are you doing? What the hell are you doing, ABC, Disney, George Stephanopoulos? How ridiculous. Remember throughout the campaign, Donald Trump, George Stephanopoulos, John, and you back down to that? You back down to that? You are utterly, utterly despicable. Take a look at this. Within one calendar day of the effective dates, defendants, ABC, shall publish the following statement. This is their apology, by adding it as an editor's note to the bottom of the March 10th, 2024 online article. ABC News and George Stephanopoulos regret statements regarding President Donald J. Trump made during an interview by George Stephanopoulos with Representative Nancy Mace on ABC's This Week on March 10th, 2024. Utterly despicable and shameful. In a little bit, I'm going to be bringing in Michael Popok. I want to talk about preemptive pardons. Popok's view about preemptive pardons is a bit different than my view of preemptive pardons as well. Let's go to our first ad break of the show, and then we'll come back for more. Thanks.
For me, having life insurance and understanding the importance to protect your family and everything you've worked so hard for is crucial. I recently got married, and that peace of mind knowing my family would be okay in a worst-case scenario is so important. It is never too late to get coverage. SelectQuote has helped people save 50% or more by shopping highly rated insurance carriers. They do the legwork and research for you. Listen to this. SelectQuote found a 40-year-old man a $500,000 policy for only $18 a month, and all of this was in minutes. Want to cross this off your list fast? SelectQuote can offer up to $2 million in instant affordable coverage with no medical exam required. So whether you need a $500,000 policy or a $5 million policy, their licensed insurance agents can help you find the right policy for you, your family, and your budget. Plus, quotes are completely free and take only minutes. We're all busy, but do me a favor. Take a couple of minutes today to get your free quote. Go to SelectQuote.com. That's SelectQuote.com. Details on the sample rate at SelectQuote.com. If you were born after 1970, there's a very good chance your first razor was a multi-blade razor. These razors have been the status quo for over half a century. But where has that gotten us? According to a recent study, 2/3 of men expect some irritation when they shave. There's virtually no information on how to prevent irritation, only on how to treat it. This is why Henson Shaving wants to change the shaving industry, not through gimmicks like subscriptions or moisturizing strips, but through groundbreaking research on the impact shaving has on your skin. Here's a dirty secret about the razor industry. Even the cheapest dollar store disposable razor will likely give you a reasonably smooth shave. The trick is in removing the hair without any negative outcomes to your skin, like irritation, razor burn, ingrown hairs, razor bumps, etc. Henson wants to change the paradigm away from getting a smooth shave to getting a skin-friendly shave. When Henson looked at other razors, they noticed a consistent lack of blade support. Basically, that the blades have too much bend or flex. Think of anything else you'd cut with, a kitchen knife, scissors, etc. You would not want that blade that you use to be moving because you'd have less control. Henson's razors are designed to hold the blade so that there is less bend and less wobble. Henson makes their razors in their aerospace machine shop in Canada that also made parts for a Mars rover and the International Space Station. Henson's machinists are exceptional at manufacturing. And that level of precision is one of the big reasons their razor is so much gentler on your skin. They have made it so the blade extends only 0.0013 inches past the shave plane of the razor. That's less than the thickness of human hair. The Henson razor works with standard dual-edge blades that cost less than 10 cents each. Once you own a Henson razor, it's only about $3 to $5 per year to replace the blades. The razor itself is made of aluminum, and there's no plastic. There's also no plastic in Henson's packaging. What I love about Henson is that they are the thought leader in an area of skin-forward technology that is woefully lacking in any leadership or research at all. And for that, my face thanks you. It's time to say no to subscriptions and yes to a razor that'll last you a lifetime. Visit hensonshaving.com/law to pick the razor for you and use code LAW to get a free shave cream with your razor. Just make sure to add it to your cart. That's a free Henson shave cream when you head to hensonshaving.com/LAW and use code LAW.
Let's go to our next topic, Michael Popok, which is this idea of preemptive pardons. You've been talking about it now for several weeks, even before it's become a, top line issue that people are talking about. Democratic Congressmember Benny Thompson, who chaired the January 6th committee and did a dutiful job chairing the January 6th committee. He's someone who's been singled out by Donald Trump and MAGA as being put on enemies lists. someone that Trump and MAGA and all of the kind of MAGA politicians say they're going to go after Benny Thompson. They've created this lie that Benny Thompson has like destroyed January 6th evidence, which he has absolutely not. It's part of when Donald Trump says the January 6th evidence and report is deleted. It doesn't exist anymore. It's like anybody can go and Google the January 6th report and all of the supporting evidence. When the new Congress took over, when the MAGA Republicans won in 2022, they took offline the official January 6th committee. So it had to go to archives. And the MAGA Republicans were the ones who wanted to bury it and get rid of it. But it's there. I mean, it's available. You know, I understand there's some dispute about whether, I mean, everything's in written transcription form, whether all of the written transcriptions and the audio and everything is being archived or not archived. But at the end of the day, Trump says that it's all been destroyed and deleted. It's 100% false. But they're targeting the January 6th committee members for saying that they're going to go after them and criminally prosecute them. So one of the questions is, do you preemptively pardon, if you're President Biden, even though these individuals didn't commit crimes at all in the January 6th committee, members of Congress who are part of the committee to investigate the bad actors, the insurrectionists, the co-conspirators, and Donald Trump who tried to overthrow the results of a 2020 election, do you give them a preemptive pardon? And a preemptive pardon or a blanket preemptive pardon is just to say, these, even though these individuals have not been convicted or even charged, they are hereby absolved of any wrongdoing whatsoever, and they receive a pardon. So nobody can ever prosecute them. Like when President Biden pardoned Hunter, he didn't just pardon Hunter for the 2 crimes that Hunter was convicted of. President Biden gave what's called a blanket pardon from the years 2014 to the moment of that pardon for any conduct at all that Hunter could be charged with. Uncharged conduct that has not been charged yet. Why? Because the MAGA Republicans have continued to say, and Kash Patel, who would be the FBI director if he ends up being confirmed, and others have been saying, look, we're going to go after Hunter for other things. We're going to go after Hunter for everything. We're going to make our mission over the next 4 years to keep going after Hunter. That's what they said. So Biden's like, all right, I'm not just going to focus on those 2 things that he pled, just in general, because you guys are just going to make stuff up. Here is Democratic Congressmember Benny Thompson. Let's play it.
Well, the president, it's his prerogative. If he offers it to me or other members of the committee, I would accept it, but it's his choice. I think the staff of the committee, who did a wonderful job, I think the witnesses, who were primarily Republicans, did a great job under oath. We were not found to have perjured themselves or anything like that. There's nothing in the record that's not already on point. We've had 2 years of review by Republican chairpersons. They found nothing wrong. So there's nothing that we kept out of the record. There's nothing that we took out of the record. So we stand by the work of the committee. Our committee did a wonderful job. We shared it with the public, and all the public has to do is to read the report that we filed based on our report.
So that's what he said there. There was another clip of him where he's asked about preemptive pardons, and he doesn't answer one way or another. He said he basically wouldn't rule it out. He didn't say, he would consider it, but he would not rule it out. He would probably accept it if it was given to him. But Popok, I know you feel very strongly that preemptive pardons should be given and accepted. I when you brought it up on the last few episodes, I didn't have a thought. I was thinking about it. And over time, I've netted out differently than you. And I think it's okay. We have differences of opinion, and where I've netted out differently is the following. I don't think preemptive pardons, even if they are given, I don't think they should be accepted.
No,
I
that's
don't think
different. Acceptance is different. Given is one thing. Yeah.
yeah, but also I'll go a step further though and say, here's why I worry that if they're given a pardon by its very nature, and you and I have covered, for example, when Donald Trump pardoned Steve Bannon, right, in the We Build the Wall scam, and federal prosecutors were prosecuting Bannon for diverting money to build the wall back in Trump administration 1, basically to line his own pockets. Bannon's now charged with that in New York as a state court, as a state crime versus a federal crime. But when Trump pardoned Bannon, you and I went through that order from that federal judge who, this may jog people's memories, who said, look, by its very nature, a pardon implies wrongdoing and guilt. For you to be pardoned, by the nature of what a pardon is, it means that a wrong has occurred to be pardoned for that thing. So what the judge made very clear is that by getting a pardon, it's not a magic wand that says you didn't commit the crime. It's that you committed a crime, and that you are and that you are absolved now of that crime from just the perspective of a public decree. But you did it. You are guilty of the crime. So in my view, Popok, for there to be an effective resistance to fascism, I think about people like Nelson Mandela. I think about the history of resistance in general. And I think would a Mandela accept, before being sentenced and before being locked up in solitary for 20, 30 years, would he accept a pardon and say, hey, I this is a get out of jail free card, and so I try to think about it in those contexts. And I think that it would play, I think that if you gave all these people preemptive pardons, who did not commit any crimes, like Hunter committed those 2 crimes. He says he admitted to it. And they were the types of crimes that people should get pardons for. I just think that it could be used and construed as a way of saying these people were guilty. They did it. That's what a pardon is. And, I think about myself too, like what if I'm not going to run away, from Trump. I'm not going to run away. If he targets us and this network and me and locks me up, so be it. We'll be stronger if he does that, if he targets us and locks us up for bullshit. So, I struggle with it is all I'm saying. But I think for there to be an awakening, I just think you have to resist, and fully resisting is, you want to come at me and build a movement based on, hey, not trying to wiggle out of it, even if, I don't know. What do you think, Popok? Am I?
Well, no, I understand what you're saying. Let me give you my view. And the Justice Department just came out with a statement that is consistent with what you just said, which is, even if because we're watching the Jan 6 judges, Chutkin, Amy Berman Jackson, Royce Lamperth, Dabney Friedrich, and the rest who are in charge, Amit Mehta, who are now busy sentencing and doing trials. And they're making sure that the record is clear, that for, let's say, the Jan 6ers, no amount of absolution or pardon is going to change the immutable facts that they attacked our Capitol, causing hundreds and hundreds of injuries and half a dozen deaths. And the Justice Department supporting that has said that if you take a pardon, it does not absolve your guilt. Now, that I think is different than people who were being preemptively pardoned before they were indicted, because they need a prophylactic protection from an out-of-control presidency who has already telegraphed in an anticipatory way that it will abuse power and that it will weaponize the Department of Justice led by Pam Locker-Up Bondi and Kash Patel, who they're all speeding towards confirmation. I'm hoping that we're able to derail some of these things when when credible Democratic senators do the live autopsy of these people in front of the American people to show how unqualified they are. But for me, we've never had a situation where a president of the outgoing party feels the need, because of the incoming president's threats of retaliation, upon which his entire presidency and his campaign were based in retribution, doesn't exercise the power of mercy to say, not that you're guilty. It certainly, regardless, there's enough language in the Constitution, I think this would fit. Joe Biden doesn't have to write memos to go with his pardons. By the way, Joe Biden didn't have to do the Hunter Biden pardon 2 weeks before the 1,800 or 1,500 commutations and clemencies. He could have buried it in there, but that's not Joe Biden. And that's where I get back to. Joe Biden is an honest man. He's a good man. He's a fine man and president. And so we're watching how Joe Biden uniquely is going to handle the clemency and pardon power. And he can write a memo that says these people have done nothing wrong. These people should never be subjected and have their entire world turned upside down, and the money that would go with that, because they're not in positions like Donald Trump. These people to raise GoFundMe for millions of dollars for meritless prosecutions, and I want to reward them for being honest Americans, and therefore I am giving them in advance of this incoming presidency and their stated goals. I'm giving them a pardon. We could do that. If they're not indicted, we could leave them to the wolves. I love Nelson Mandela, but he spent 24 years in solitary confinement. And I'm not sure I want Adam Schiff and Liz Cheney and Benny Thompson and Letitia James and the rest to do that. Now, there's a lot that has to happen. Even an out of control, power mad Hoover for the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, couldn't put everybody in jail. He did do things that were inappropriate. He did do investigations and spying and other things. And if he had the technology that we have today, it would be even worse. But there's going to be federal judge pushback for a lot of these prosecutions should they start. And so I think you offer them. Now, you don't have to take them, but I think you offer them. Otherwise, my fear is that we miss the opportunity, because we're good, honest Democrats, to protect people that were just doing their civic duty and their patriotic duty. That's all. Telling the truth, as Benny said, no perjury, no nothing, telling their truth about a criminal guy. And we leave them to be what Donald Trump has said he's going to do. It's not like we have to I wonder if he's going to do that. We know he's going to do it. I had this debate, a little bit mini version of this debate yesterday with Michael Cohen when I joined him on Mea Culpa. I think it's going up over the weekend, about pardons. Of course, Michael, I've advocated for Michael to get a pardon on every hot take about pardons that I've done. But I understand your point of view, and I don't want one, and I wouldn't accept one. But I'm also not, the Liz Cheneys of the world, and I'm not the Alvin Braggs, anybody that's going after Donald Trump and put him into a defense criminal position. I am worried about, and I would kick myself, I think, if they go after these people and they file them in weird places and these people's lives are turned upside down. And Joe Biden had an opportunity to do the right thing. I'm still there, I think.
I think there's a difference, though, between a Benny Thompson, Liz Cheney, although Liz Cheney's now a private citizen. She's no longer a congresswoman, but Letitia James, an attorney general of a sovereign state, of New York. Alvin Bragg, whose power as a district attorney emanates from the state of New York, and the powers and strength constitutionally of federalism, where if Trump tries to send the National Guard or send the military to extract state officials or go after members of Congress, even in D.C. with Trumpy judges, we've seen Trumpy judges in D.C. saying that you can't, these January 6th insurrectionists are bad people. These Trumpy judges in D.C. do not agree with some of Donald Trump's most significant illegal excesses we've seen. They go a long way with him. So they're protected. Hunter is not protected. Like they'll go for Hunter. They will throw him in jail for the rest of his life. And they will make the next 4 years more about Hunter. So I just think there's a different vulnerability there than members of Congress who, in a civil context, have a speech or debate clause immunity, who have constitutional provisions that respect their authority as a co-equal branch of government versus a private citizen. So, but I hear you, Popok, and I theoretically am on the same page with you in a different world, I suppose. But I just think that people right now, there needs to be major acts of audacious courage right now in the face of threats. Not just, you see lots of people obeying and submitting, but you need acts of audacious courage out there standing up and reminding people what our country is all about. It's people have forgot, they've lost they're so focused on their TikToks and their this and their that they don't care that people are, that Trump's appointing people to the Health and Human Services who wants to get rid of your polio vaccine and get rid of measles vaccine and they're not taking care of the basic functions of government. We need big, audacious resistance right now. And I just think that giving and accepting pardons for people who already have massive constitutional power as members of Congress and as attorney generals, I don't know. I just think that I want to see them out there resisting in the spirit of a Mandela, more. But to your point, well, Ben, that's great, but that means solitary confinement for 24 years. You do that, Ben, but I think you have to be prepared for it. I'm in a different situation, but I think in my mind, I think to myself, I'm not running away. I'm going to be here on the front lines. And if that's what it is, so be it. You have to think that way. I think if you're in this game,
I'm going to be in the suite with you. It's going to be a room for two.
Well, I'm not sure it'll be a room for two. It'll probably be a room for. It'd be nice if we could shoot legal AF from there. Anyway, let's take legal AF from the gulag. We will be right back after our last quick break of the show.
Let's face it. After a night with drinks, I don't bounce back the next day like I used to. I have to make a choice. I can either have a great night or a great next day. That is until I found ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Now look, I won't lie. I was a bit on the fence about pre-alcohol initially. But then, while hanging out with my fantasy football draft crew over at our favorite Jersey Shore sports bar, I gave it a shot. And believe me, it's the real deal. I spent the entire next day doing all my favorite things with my family, including a long hike on our favorite trail. I kept hearing about pre-alcohol, and I wondered what it was actually like. But now that I've tried it, I believe the hype. And with their GMO technology, they will release different products that help address toxic byproducts of modern living in the gut. Go to zbiotics.com/legalaf to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use LegalAF at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/legalaf and use the code LegalAF at checkout for 15% off. We've talked previously about how much of your personal data is out there on the internet for anyone to see. Your name, contact info, social security number, and home address. Even information about your family members. all being compiled by data brokers and sold online. As a person who exists publicly, especially as someone who shares my opinions online, I am hyper aware of safety and security, and privacy matters more than ever. It's easier than ever to find personal information about people online. All this data hanging out there on the internet can have actual consequences in the real world. That's why I decided to give a Delete Me subscription to my wife. Now look, my wife is the handyman in the family and does so many things beautifully, but tech is not one of them. And I worry about her online presence, especially given my work in the media. Giving her a Delete Me subscription made her happy and let me relax. It was the perfect gift. And once I gave it to her, she started using it, and then she realized how insecure she was before and how protected and proactive she felt now. It empowered her. That's why I personally recommend Delete Me. Delete Me is a subscription service that removes your personal info from hundreds of data brokers. Sign up and provide Delete Me with exactly what information you want deleted, and their experts take it from there. Delete Me isn't just a one-time service. Delete Me is always working for you, constantly monitoring and removing the personal information you don't want on the internet. To put it simply, Delete Me does all the hard work of wiping your and your family's personal information from data broker websites. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me, now at a special discount for our listeners and their loved ones. Today, get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/legalaf and use promo code legalaf at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/legalaf and enter code legalaf at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/legalaf, code legalaf.
Welcome back to Legal AF, and remind everybody to go to the Legal AF YouTube channel. It's just absolutely crushing it. Would love to see that Legal AF YouTube channel get 1 million subscribers. So if you can subscribe to the Legal AF YouTube channel, please do so. Popok, I was just doing a inventory of what's going on in other states in their elections. And I saw one of these stories, so I wanted to dig deeper and say, is this unique? And then it wasn't. And then it was in another state. And then it was in another state where Republicans who are big MAGA people, who are kind of inspired by Trump, in the MAGA movement, whether they're like county commissioners or school board members or whatever, in Republican areas, these are people who are convicted felons, who the Republican electorate in these Republican red state areas know that these people have been accused of some of the most heinous crimes or just very serious crimes, in some instances the most heinous crimes. And the Republican electorate, the evangelicals, they elect these people to power in state and local elections, and it's becoming such an issue that we talk about how states are laboratories for autocracy. That's a term that David Pepper came up, and it's a great term. So while the states are being these laboratories for autocracy about taking away women's reproductive rights and then exporting that vision in more radical forms to other states as well, or in the same or more radical form, they're also now cooking up a laboratory in their laboratories of autocracy, making sure that felons can run for office, even that felons who are in prison can still represent people while they are in prison. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, this is some heinous stuff. Take a look at, this is in Indiana. This is from the Guardian report. So a guy, a Republican politician in Indiana, ran for kind of a local commissioner position in Hancock, Indiana. People were aware of these charges against him, that he sexually assaulted his own daughter in Vegas while saying, "What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas." It's a dad who sexually assaulted his daughter. His daughter was the victim who went to the police, who turned in her dad. The public had that knowledge about it. The guy then pled guilty to it. He won the election. He won the commissioner seat in Indiana, and he sexually assaulted his own daughter. And that guy won. You turn to Monroe, Michigan, a Republican commissioner there, felony drug charges. I mean, and the voters knew that this guy was a felon, that he was going to go to prison. And for 18 months, they were aware of that prison sentence. And they elected the guy to serve his term as a commissioner from inside a federal penitentiary as the Monroe, Michigan commissioner. So, and then the guy talks about, he pled guilty, and the guy talks about how, well, he's going to have some of the other commissioners are going to help him answer constituent mail. But don't worry, he'll be back in 18 months once he finishes serving his time. And then in Missouri, they have their Trump law. They actually call it the Trump law. The Donald J. Trump Election Qualification Act would make it possible for those guilty of felonies to continue to run for office at the highest levels. When I was doing this research, it was shocking, Michael Popok. Shocking. Well, actually, I shouldn't say shocking. I mean, this is who the Republican Party is, but it all starts at the top, or I guess you can say with them at the bottom, with Trump. But this is going on. The Republican voters are just good with this. So it's not, I think it was helpful to talk about it here in this episode, because this is not some like, oh my God, they elected a convicted felon. Like, they're doing it throughout the country right now. And these same politicians who are taking away women's reproductive rights are sexually assaulting their own daughters and preventing their daughters from getting abortions in their states, and then allowing themselves to have more rights than their daughters who they've raped, and then run for office and get elected by a Republican electorate in a red state. Popok.
It is a symbol of how low we've sunk, or in parts of this country, how low they have sunk, and the fact of the social contract, because of the tone at the top, the immoral tone at the top with Donald Trump. The social contract sort of lies at tatters at our feet. There's things that you and I would never think to do, not because it was technically illegal, although that was a good way to stop me from doing something. It's because it was immoral or against social norms, or it was just the guardrails that were put around our country because we were just Americans. As that bond has been broken. When I saw the statistic, Ben, that many millions of people sat out this last election, what I mean is sat out democracy. And I don't mean like a couple. I mean like the numbers, like 9 to 10 million people just said, F it. I don't like either of what's going on here. The brand of both Democrat and Republicans don't appeal to me. And I'd rather just sit on social media and go about my day. And I don't think that this matters to me personally, domestically, foreign policy wise, Supreme Court level, my rights. That's saying something. That means the parties, and I'm looking at our party too, and the fair-minded people that we represent here that are part of our constituency on Midas Touch and on Legal AF. We got to do a better job of repairing a broken brand and around our political system, so that people go to the polls and understand the importance of defending our democracy. And then we see it show up, right, in the water, seep into the water supply in places like these red states that think it's funny, or it's their new version, upside down world of patriotism, to allow a Donald Trump-like felon to represent their interest in elected office, or a person who is convicted of sexually abusing their own daughter in Vegas. And that wasn't the only charge against him, by the way. And because we've elected, the people that voted for him in larger numbers than voted for Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party, although I don't see it as a lurch to the right in terms of the magnification of the United States. I don't. I believe it came down to the economy and a couple of social wedge issues and 9 million people who sat it out. But, it's like it's sort of like that guy that in the NFL that during the recent game, they told the linebacker, "Okay, you're in." He said, "No, I'm out. I'm not playing." What do you mean? We're in the middle of the game. No, I'm out. But we have to find a way to get those 9 million people re-engaged. And we have work to do here. I don't want this. We don't blow smoke or sunshine here. I don't want to say we have a perfect brand as a political party. And that really, we don't. And we have to work on, we have the makings of a great brand. It's not going to take much to tweak it. And I like us being on our side, not their side, because we would never have to tell a story like you just did about Democrats allowing immoral, unethical, criminal, felon, sexual abusers to hold high office. We'd never do that. And that is one of the major distinctions that separates the Democrats from the Republicans. But we got a bigger issue right below it, which is what are we going to do to restore and reassemble the social contract that Donald Trump has spent the first 4 years, the election period, and then the next 4 years crapping all over and using it as toilet paper. And how do we do that? And how do we, through Midas Touch and Legal AF and all the other contributors and great shows here that we're dedicated now ever more full time. How do we restore that trust in our political system and in our democracy and in our social contract? And then we have to educate and train around it, because it's not going to come from TikTok or comments or podcasts necessarily. We have to work on the re-education. We used to call it, when I was a kid in school, civics class. We all have to take civics class again about what it means to be a fellow American and to support your fellow American, regardless of their religious stripe, gender, orientation, or politics. It has to happen.
Well, look, in the past week, Donald Trump has said that he makes no guarantees at all that he's going to lower prices, right? He's said, and Kristen Welker last week on Meet the Press, and then he said in his Time magazine interview that it's very hard to lower prices and not sure that he can do it. Probably won't be able to do it. It's definitely very hard. Then he told some rambling story about seeing big ships at ports and docks because he's got property in Palos Verdes. Donald, you guaranteed your whole thing was guaranteeing people on day one you were going to lower the prices. That's literally the main thing that you lied to people about, saying you're going to lower your prices, you're going to lower prices, you're going to lower your prices. Then Donald Trump went to Wall Street. He was at the New York Stock Exchange. He was asked the biggest softball question in the world by Jim Cramer, the kind of propagandist masquerading as a business reporter. He was asked, by the way, that all of the indexes went down when Donald Trump was there that day. And I think it had like its 7th straight down day, which it hadn't in a while. But when Trump was there, the market was down. And Trump was asked, do you think workers should feel confident to invest their money in the stock market? Popok, you don't get an easier softball question than that when you're out there bragging about how you're going to make the stock market the greatest thing ever, even though Biden stock market is 60% better than Trump administration one stock market is. And you're at Wall Street. You have your cabinet. This whole thing is a propaganda trip. You're asked, should American workers feel confident to invest their money in the stock exchange and stocks? And Trump goes, yeah, I don't know. He goes, I think that if there's a dip, they can be hurt. So I don't know. There's a dip, they can be hurt. You're talking about a dip now? You're saying that there's going to be a dip in the stock market? You went from guaranteeing all of these things to now you're talking about a dip. You're not going to be able to lower prices. And then on healthcare, he still talks about having concepts of a plan and not an actual plan. And there's a lot of work happening behind the scenes with these MAGAs to repeal Obamacare, get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which they're absolutely going to try to do. So I'm bringing all of this up because I think that, Americans have been flirting with all of these horrific MAGA ideas for a long time. And, there's been a buy-in, but there's been this flirtation with this awful stuff that's only going to benefit the billionaires and create an oligarchy. And so, to some extent, Popok, in terms of this re-engagement in civics, I hate the F around and find out stuff, because that means people get hurt when they find out. But there feels like, as part of this journey, you have to see how bad it is, how dangerous it is. And I don't wish that to happen. I just know that our reporting has to be on the front lines on day one, saying, wait, he promised you the price of eggs was going to go down. The price of eggs is up. Didn't he say he was going to fix gas prices? That didn't happen. Wait a minute. He said he was going to stop the war in Ukraine, Russia's lawful invasion. That didn't happen. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. And now their billionaires are getting even richer, and their first thing they're doing is a tax cut for the richest people. Think about those optics, Popok. Remember the optics back in 2017 with all the white guy Congress members, and senators standing behind him, and they were all clapping that they gave themselves the billionaires' tax cuts. Think about those optics in a 2025 fire pressure cooker of America that Trump has created with his lies over and over again. And just think about what those optics are gonna look like when he does that tone deaf stuff. I'll toss it to you to take it out of this episode, but
Sure.
I know you want to also mention. I think we should mention briefly, though, that Biden's doing everything he can do, his administration, on the agency front, to try to do as much as they can to stop the biggest excesses of Trump. And the agencies are still working overtime right now to stop the bad actors, knowing that Trump's going to let his oligarchy just steal from everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're watching now is nobody knows how to reinforce legislation and executive orders better than Joe Biden. I mean, people can say what they want about him, but he spent a lot of time in the Senate, and he knows Capitol Hill really well. They're working overtime now. He has every one of his agencies trying to find ways through any power that he can use to both thwart Donald Trump, make it harder for him to dismantle the Biden legacy on day one, to install things now that he has the power to do as Joe Biden is president until he's not president, that Donald Trump will have to deal with and tear down when he gets into office. And they're doing that systematically by department and department. Even little things like there's reporting that Christopher Wray in the FBI, even though he's getting out on January 20th, he's busy promoting people within the FBI to give them better pension grades and to give them more security and to make it harder for Donald Trump to fire them. And other agencies are doing the same thing. So they're not just sitting idly, but morale is terrible. I know people in the government and different agencies, and morale is terrible because the career people didn't want to leave necessarily. The top people, like that we talk about a lot, the cabinet picks and the commissioners, of course, they're going to change, and people are already leaving. But that below that, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of staff level people that really didn't want to. They wanted to serve independently, nonpartisans, different presidents, but Trump is making that almost impossible to do. So they're thinking about their own jobs, but they are working overtime. For instance, I'll give you just two of them. We see the filings the Department of Justice continues to make. They just took a plea deal, for the guy that accused the Biden of taking bribes. We talked about it over the summer in April or May. That guy just took a plea deal and got convicted of felonies. They're staying on top of that. They're breaking up neo-Nazi groups. They're continuing to file, prosecutions and go after voter fraud and abuse at abortion clinics. They're all doing everything that we want in advance of the change in power. on the SEC side, the Securities and Exchange Commission side, which has been the bane of Elon Musk's and Donald Trump's existence because it regulates their public companies. I know this from won't name names, but they have been given the instruction to get their enforcement actions out the door and off their desk and get them filed and get the cease and desist orders entered into with these bad companies and bad people and get the money and get the fines. There's one we just reported on. The incoming cabinet secretary who runs Cantor Fitzgerald. Cantor Fitzgerald just got hit with a cease and desist order and a $6.75 million fine just the other day by the Securities and Exchange Commission. I assure you, they wanted to kick that off until January and not have to deal with it when Gary Gensler, the head of the SEC, leaves. But the regulators are all looking these bad companies and bad people in the eye, and they're not blinking. And they're saying, no, you are to sign the cease and desist letter. You are to enter into this on fraud, and you are to pay the fine within 2 weeks. And this is going to be repeated over and over again. That's why Elon Musk just announced through his social media posts that he's being investigated again at the Securities and Exchange Commission on 2 different tracks. One related to possible stock manipulation before he bought the entirety of what was then Twitter. He was buying and selling, and he was making statements about it and manipulating the stock price. That's the allegation. Then he's got another company called Neuralink that's made some outrageous claims about its technology, and the SEC doesn't like it. And so they've reopened, or they're continuing. They're like, you enter into the cease and desist letter, and you enter into this fine, or and he's like, or what? Or they're going to take him to court and enforce it. So there's still a lot of juice left in the tank here for the Biden administration. So these are the things I think they're doing. They're getting the judges confirmed. They're vetoing bills that would only help Donald Trump. They're trying to reinforce the Biden legacy in the ways that they can, in the remaining ways, including promoting people and selling off parts of the wall. I did a whole hot take on that. So Donald Trump has to rebuy it if he's going to do it. Don't make it easy on Donald Trump. I mean, they're not going to stuff the toilets with paper and snip all the wires on the computers like what happened to them, and use glue on the keyboards. That did happen to them on the way in. But they have other ways to try to protect the Biden legacy as he focuses, along with his chief of staff and his White House counsel, on pardons and on clemency. Because as they said in the last order, they're not in their last statement that went along with the 1,500 clemencies, they're not done. And we're going to be getting drops every few days about these new clemencies and new pardons. And we'll see if you and I are right or wrong about who he does. And Michael Cohen, who's applied for a pardon, gets his pardon. We'll report on it here right on Legal AF. But that's what's going on behind the scenes. So you and I and Karen and I may not have a lot of cases to talk about. I assure you that's going to change when Donald Trump has already said he's going to pardon everyone in the first hours. There's a stack of executive orders he's going to be signing in the first week, hundreds of them, and we're going to need to be able to respond in the courts about them.
Absolutely. And there's going to be a deluge of lawsuits, federal lawsuits. And, you and I have described, and we'll describe it in greater detail on other episodes as well. On our next episode, we'll do a whole segment on it. The strategy behind the lawsuits that are going to be filed against civil rights groups and legal advocate groups as Donald Trump tries to break down the Constitution, where they get filed, how you petition for national injunctions to block Donald Trump's efforts, the strategy behind that. We'll break it all down for you. And I'm sure, we're going to be seeing a lot of that. So thank you, everybody. I've been traveling. That's why I'm in this room right here, and took a red-eye flight last night. And so it's good to be with all of you today, though, this evening. And Michael Popok, great being with you. And we've got a lot of work ahead of us together. A lot of work, but I'm very, very happy to be doing it with the Midas Mighty. And, we'll do with joy, with grace, with passion, with with true resistance against fascism and authoritarianism, and with the true vision to support, protect, and defend our democracy. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you next time on Legal AF. Make sure you all check out Michael Popok's YouTube channel, the Legal AF YouTube channel. Subscribe right now to his YouTube channel. And also, you can check out some articles on MeidasPlus.com as well, MeidasPlus.com. Thanks, Michael.
You too, Ben.
Bye, everybody. We'll see you next time.